In a sun-dappled forest, nestled in the heart of an ancient oak, lived a little sparrow named Pip. But Pip was no ordinary sparrow. While his brothers and sisters happily flitted from branch to branch, chirping about the juiciest worms and the coziest nests, Pip's eyes were always fixed on the distant, jagged peaks of the mountains. He wasn't watching for other sparrows. He was watching for the eagles. He saw them every day, majestic figures soaring on unseen currents of wind. They were masters of the sky, their wingspan a declaration of freedom, their cries echoing with power. Pip would watch, mesmerized, his tiny heart thumping with a strange and powerful longing. "I want to fly like that," he'd whisper to himself. "I want to see the world from above the clouds." His family didn't understand. "Pip, you're a sparrow," his mother would chirp gently. "Our wings are for short, quick flights, for darting through the trees. The mountains are no place for us." His father was more stern. "Chasing eagles is a fool's dream. Be content with who you are. Find a good berry patch, build a strong nest. That is the sparrow's way." His friends would tease him. "Look, it's Pip the eagle dreamer," they'd call out. "Are you going to grow giant wings overnight?" Pip would just puff out his chest and say, "You'll see. One day I'll fly with them." But their words stung, and sometimes, alone in his nest, doubt would creep in. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was just a foolish little bird with an impossible dream. But the dream was stubborn. It was a fire in his belly that wouldn't go out. So Pip began to train. He woke before the other sparrows, at the first hint of dawn. He didn't just fly to the nearest branch. He pushed himself higher, further than he ever had before. He'd fly against the wind until his little wings ached, strengthening his muscles, building his stamina. He studied the eagles, observing how they used the wind, how they tilted their wings to catch the thermals, the invisible columns of rising air that lifted them effortlessly towards the heavens. He tried to imitate them, launching himself from high branches, trying to glide. More often than not, he'd tumble through the air, landing awkwardly in a bush, his feathers ruffled and his pride a little bruised. The other sparrows would laugh, but Pip didn't care. With every clumsy fall, he learned something new. He learned how the wind felt just before it lifted, and how a tiny adjustment of his tail could change his direction. One day, an old wise owl who had seen many seasons come and go noticed Pip's relentless efforts. He'd watched the little sparrow day after day, never giving up. One evening he hooted softly from his perch. "Little sparrow," he said, his voice a low rumble. "I see the fire in your eyes. It is a rare thing." Pip, startled, looked up at the owl. "They all say I'm foolish," Pip chirped, his voice small. The owl blinked his large, golden eyes. "It is not foolish to want to see the world from a different perspective. But the eagles do not fly with strength alone. They fly with wisdom. They understand the sky. You cannot match their size, but you can learn their secrets." Inspired by the owl's words, Pip's training took on a new purpose. It wasn't just about strength anymore. It was about intelligence. He spent hours watching the patterns of the clouds, feeling the subtle shifts in the breeze. He learned to read the sky like a map. He discovered that the wind had a rhythm, a pulse, and if he listened closely, he could dance with it. Finally, the day came. A strong, steady wind was blowing from the valley towards the mountains, a perfect updraft. Pip knew this was his chance. His heart was a drum against his ribs. He took a deep breath, said a silent goodbye to his familiar oak tree, and launched himself into the air. He flew past the forest canopy, higher than he had ever dared before. The world below shrank into a patchwork of green and brown. He was small, a tiny speck in the vast blue expanse. Fear tried to grip him, but the thrill of the flight was stronger. He remembered everything he had learned. He found a thermal, a rising river of warm air, and let it lift him. It felt like magic. He wasn't flapping frantically anymore. He was soaring. And then he saw them, a pair of eagles, circling gracefully in the distance. They were even more magnificent up close. For a moment, he was frozen in awe, but his dream pushed him forward. He flew towards them, his small wings working in a steady, determined rhythm. The eagles saw him, this tiny, audacious sparrow flying in their domain. The larger eagle swooped down. its shadow falling over Pip. Pip's heart leaped into his throat. He expected to be shooed away, or worse. But the eagle simply circled him, its sharp eyes filled not with aggression, but with a flicker of curiosity. It watched as Pip, using his unique knowledge of the air currents, navigated the strong winds with an agility the larger bird couldn't match. He darted and weaved, a tiny master of his own flight. The eagle let out a cry, but it wasn't a cry of warning. It sounded different, respectful. It tilted its wings and began to climb higher, and to Pip's astonishment, it seemed to be inviting him to follow. And so he did. For a few glorious moments, Pip the sparrow flew with the eagles. He couldn't soar as high for as long, and his perspective was different. But he was there. He saw the world from above the clouds, a breathtaking panorama of mountains and valleys stretching to the horizon. It was more beautiful than he had ever imagined. He saw his forest, a small patch of green, and realized how big the world truly was. He didn't become an eagle that day. He was, and always would be, a sparrow. When his wings grew tired, he bid the eagles a silent farewell and glided back down to his home in the oak tree. He landed on his favorite branch, exhausted but exhilarated. The other sparrows gathered around, their chirps no longer teasing, but full of awe. They had seen him, a tiny dot in the sky flying where no sparrow had flown before. From that day on, Pip was different. He still lived in the forest, he still ate berries, and he still enjoyed the company of his family. But he carried the memory of the mountains within him. He hadn't changed what he was, but he had expanded who he could be. He proved that the size of your wings doesn't determine the height of your dreams, and that courage, persistence, and a little bit of wisdom can help even the smallest among us touch the sky. And sometimes he would look towards the peaks, and the eagles, soaring high above, would seem to dip their wings in a silent salute to the little sparrow with the heart of an eagle. Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales that lift the spirit. Until next time, keep your dreams big and your heart open.